Yeah, this is Metal Mike coming at you. I wanted to give you a little bit of history about how I started getting in this business. It's basically been in the family for years, one way or another. It started as a young kid. I grew up in St. Paul, Minnesota, poor. And I use the word poor because that's what I was. There was no food in the refrigerator. There were no toys. I maybe had one or two toys. So what I would do for entertainment, being an only child, is I would get out and I'd hit those streets and those alleys. I would walk alleys for hours on days. That's all there was for me to do. It was either that or get into trouble, which I did plenty of, trust me. But what ended up happening is I learned from my mistakes. And the one skill that I did learn was getting out there and finding old things. I'd drag home an old radio, even an old motorcycle in those days. Anything was possible. It has changed so much. I remember the first house I came upon. It was abandoned. I couldn't have been no more than 6, 7 years old. And there was a house. It was secluded by a hedge, and it was an old man had lived there, and he had built teepees out of old pieces of wood, and there was an old garage, and he had a dumpster dead center of this property. And I would go there after school, and no one could see me, so I could just forge. I mean, there was no one around. They were cleaning this house out into the dumpster, and I spent hours digging in this dumpster, finding newspapers about Joe Louis boxing, just amazing things. And at the time, I had an uncle, stepfather, father, I might as well call him, and he was into race cars and such. He ended up opening a comic book store to get this thing rolling here. And we would go to flea markets every Saturday. So I ended up giving him. I found this big wood castle in that dumpster. It was so cool. If I had it today, oh, what I wouldn't pay for it. It was about this big. It was made out of wood. It had the little forts on each end of the castle, whatever the heck they're called. And it was just such a neat piece. And I remember giving that to him, and he had a comic book store. And that's kind of where it all came from. Even my grandfather, World War II veteran, he would always, if it wasn't a piece off of a Japanese World War II plane, a piece of trench art, he designed these lamps. Just amazing. Maybe sometime I'll get the chance to show them to you. From little trinkets, and when he would give me the lamp, he'd say, in this part right here, this came from the U.S. Post Office downtown. This is bronze. This is the handle. So we were always out, the whole family, on one way or another. Flea markets on Saturdays. I'd get a quarter, and I could get maybe I could get some Rock'em Sock'em Robots, a comic book, and maybe a Kiss album if I was lucky for that quarter. Boy, if times changed. And then my mother ended up meeting a gentleman who was an auctioneer. 11, 12 years old. I'm in front of the auction. I'm holding the items up. I'm going on estate calls. It was amazing because Gilbert, he would take us out, and he just had a business card he'd hand out, and he would run an ad in the local paper, and we would go out, and we would go on these calls, and I would be so embarrassed when he'd offer what he'd pay him. He'd say $5 for the whole load, but I'll be darned if they didn't take it every damn time. The passion. I love it. Otherwise I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. I love getting out there, finding it. I meet these people. I remember a story a couple years ago. I was picking, seen some people throwing some things out, went and knocked on the door. And next thing I know, I'm in the house. I'm up in the attic with a 90-year-old woman, and she's German. Immigrant, had come to the United States after World War II, and she's giving me her German books from the World War II era, and just amazing. You go from driving an alley to 15 minutes later, I'm in this attic with this woman, and she's telling me her history, and it's touching, and I just love it. I love the pick. Hey now.